Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the AnthroPuzzled podcast. I'm your host, Abby Letzinger, and every 2 weeks we'll explore how anthropologists are forging unique career paths beyond the usual academic sphere. Tune in, get inspired, and start piecing together your own career puzzle within the world of anthropology. On today's episode, we're pleased to welcome Grace Penry. She earned her bachelor's degree in anthropology and creative writing with a minor in Spanish from the University of Arizona. Currently, she's pursuing her master's in creative writing and translation at the University of Arkansas, where she also works as a graduate teaching assistant. How are we doing today, Grace?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great as well. So why did you decide to get an anthropology degree along with a creative writing one?
When I started college, I really had no idea what I wanted to study. And those were the two classes that I liked the most. And then also, because you talk to Cameron Kays, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And she probably told you we worked together on an anthropological team as student researchers. And starting that is kind of what pushed me to just finish the major in anthropology.
Okay, so was there a certain job you hoped to obtain with getting these two degrees?
This sounds so stupid, but I wasn't thinking about that at all. I think that I've always kind of gravitated toward teaching and I really like working with people. So I thought both of these degrees at the end of the day are degrees with which I could go into education if I wanted to, or something along those lines.
Yeah, so how is your background in anthropology kind of shaping your approach to writing? Because now you're getting a master's in creative writing and translation. So how is it kind of assisting with that, I guess?
Yeah. I've been thinking about this, and I think that in anthropology, honestly, and I'm sure this happens to a lot of people at this point, there are so many things that I don't remember from my classes at all that, I know I learned, but there are certain skills that I think I learned in anthropology that really helped me with writing. And that would be, I think anthropology really teaches you to be observant in a way, because especially when I was working on the research team, you always have to be taking notes on your surroundings and everything. And I think it also teaches you to listen, because when you're interviewing someone, the idea is that you're not talking so much as listening, obviously. And I think learning to listen really helps my approach to writing.
Now, do you ever find like similarities between the two disciplines?
I do, because even though writing is literature, it's obviously very tied to culture and literature of certain cultures, and then like certain time periods, like postmodernism versus modernism, and all of that's very tied to a lot of anthropological ideas as well. And a lot of anthropologists were also creative writers and went back and forth. So I do find that the disciplines inform each other quite a lot.
Yeah. Now, have you ever thought about like combining both fields in your work or like, maybe writing fiction based on anthropological research or exploring cultural themes in your creative writing?
I have sort of. I don't know if this totally is that, but I've always loved storytelling. That's why I think that's one of the big draws to me with writing, and also probably anthropology as well. And so like last year, just for fun, I was trying to write a story, a bunch of different ghost stories. So I was asking people I knew and like in Arizona where I'm from, if they had any ghost stories to kind of make a collection. So I think doing things like that is kind of like anthropology in a way, but
Yeah.
mysterious.
So I saw that you also had a minor in Spanish. So were you getting two majors and a minor done at the same time?
Yeah, I was.
How was all of that?
Well, okay, I took a lot of Spanish in high school, so I came in and I think I only needed 4 Spanish classes to get the minor, so it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, when I was doing my two majors at the same time, I had already had maybe like a semester or two worth of credits coming in from high school. So adding on my second major of anthropology, I wasn't going to be in college longer than the normal 4 years
Right.
that New York people are in for, which I think that was a good thing because if I was there any longer, I would have been like, you know what, I don't need that degree. I'll just stick with my business one.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that a lot of people should consider, when they're going to school and they're getting a major. If they want to double major, they definitely want to talk with their academic advisors because in some universities, once you hit a certain number of credits, you have to start paying extra for any other credits past that threshold. So I think my last semester of college was twice as expensive only because I had extra credits over what they deemed me to what I was supposed to have.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something to take in consideration if you're considering getting a double major or a major and a couple minors or something like that.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think I kind of talk to my students about this as well, but scholarships these days work so differently. Even though I was only in school 5 years ago, it's crazy. My scholarship covered everything for 8 semesters. So as long as I graduated within 8 semesters, it didn't matter my credits. But I know that seems almost as if they have to apply for certain scholarships every year instead of just getting them, which to me is crazy.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot too, because with me going back to school, I've been applying for scholarships again. And a lot of them are 1 or 2 semester based. They're not a whole 4 years or covering the whole thing. Because I went to school on a full ride because Florida has a program called Florida Bright Futures. And if you do a certain number of community service hours, as well as if you get a certain score on your ACT or SAT, you can either have a full ride scholarship or you can have they'll cover half of your tuition. So I was lucky enough to get the full ride scholarship. So I didn't have a lot of student loans coming out of college, but it's not something that is generally offered as much anymore that I'm aware of. Granted, I'm going to school in a different state, so I don't know if the process is different for them, but it's a lot harder to find scholarships these days because you don't know what's real, you don't know what's fake. And most of the times, certain websites will be like, "Oh, you don't have to write an essay. You just have to click a couple buttons, and we'll put you in for this scholarship." And you're like, "Is it really that simple?"
Yeah. No, it's so true. I mean, I have a little sister who's going to college now. I'm from Arizona. She's from Arizona. And the scholarship that I had doesn't even exist anymore. It didn't even exist for her. So she didn't go to University of Arizona. She went to NAU mostly because of that. And even at NAU, Northern Arizona University, the scholarships are so different then. It's so sad. I don't know what changed in these past 5 years. It would be good. Like so so different. And I'm sure people before it's not the same. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, definitely when we were younger, there was a going to college or trade school, just higher education in general, was pushed more by parents. Like, oh, you need to go to college to have a career. But nowadays, people with degrees are like, you really don't need to go to college to get a degree because me going to college is not getting me the jobs that I thought I was going to get. And so a lot of people are like, I can just get certificates or go to a trade school and not have to worry about getting into all this debt going to a university because they're so expensive. So I think it's just based on, the workforce and the jobs that are available to individuals with degrees and to those without that they're noticing my degree doesn't feel like it's making much of a difference now.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I think that's one of the reasons why I feel so lucky and grateful because I had that scholarship opportunity. I think that's what gave me the flexibility to think about majors like anthropology and creative writing, whereas otherwise I probably wouldn't have considered them because
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, you're currently in school. You're getting your master's in creative writing and translation at the University of Arkansas. How is that going?
I think when it comes to grad school, especially because I'm going to grad school for a fine art or an art, you have to go into it thinking it's about you, which sounds selfish, but you really have to be selfish with your time because otherwise there's no point really going to get a master's in writing when the idea is you'll write something, but if you spend your whole time focused on things that aren't writing, you know, it's not gonna help you. Also because I think a lot of people in like areas like writing or other arts, they go to grad school because they tend to be funded. At least mine is funded. And also, I'm at the age where I'm 25 now, but I'll be 26, so health insurance is a thing for me. And so it's like a more financially responsible option in a way if you want to have time to write, because it does give you time to write, it does give you community, and it does make you focus on that aspect of your life. While at the same time, I know I'll have like some income and I know I'll have health insurance. So
And those kind of benefits come with being a graduate teaching assistant?
yes, yes. So I would really recommend that people, especially if you're going into something like creative writing, and honestly, probably anthropology too, right? Where there's not like a big job waiting for you at the other end, only go to a funded program. And like this, my program, I don't get a huge stipend, but it's better than nothing, and it's better than having to pay for sure.
Yeah. So with the degree you're getting, are you working on like a thesis or like a master's project? Because I heard there was a difference between the two.
Oh, I I know that I have to eventually write a thesis. My program is actually really long. There's only 2 programs, I think University of Arkansas and University of Alabama are the only MFAs in creative writing that are 4 years. So usually they're 1 or 2 years or 2 or 3 years, and but since mine is 4 years and I'm only in my 2nd year, I technically don't, like, necessarily have to worry about that so much until about next year. But what's so interesting to me that I didn't know is that all master's programs are extremely different. Like, I thought it's because in undergrad, it's pretty standardized, how many credit hours you need across the country. But for master's programs, it's really not. And also, if you're applying to grad school, make sure you're aware of necessarily what the workload is gonna be at each different university before going.
Yeah. Do you have any
Yeah.
recommendations on like things to research, like other than the workload, but things to research if you're looking into a grad program?
Yes, definitely look at the opportunities that the university offers outside of just the grad school, because again, I think personally for me, my grad school experience is a lot about professionalization and writing and making it something that I could go into. So looking at whether or not the school has internship opportunities, what other connections in the community or to literary magazines they have, especially with creative writing. Some universities have really, really important like literary magazine publications, and working at one of those looks really good and can put you in connection with a lot of other writers as well. Everyone says to look at the professors too. I'm sure you've heard that, right? Before going to grad school. I always struggled with that one because I have a hard time getting a feel for what a person's like just by looking at them online. And so I did look at like what areas of interest the professors had at the schools I was applying to. But I've had a good experience with my professors. But that one part of advice that everyone gives that is the hardest for me to feel like I'm making it helpful for myself.
Right. So do you kind of feel like maybe doing campus tours or setting up meetings with these professors prior to applying for their programs would probably be beneficial for others who are kind of like you in the sense of I I can't really connect with these professors online in a way that would be meaningful to help me understand who they are as a person. That's more of like an in-person thing I'd have to do to understand.
Yeah, I never did a campus tour, and I never met with a professor or reached out to any of them before as well. I was way too nervous and shy, but I think that would be cool if you do, if you're not nervous or shy. But
Yeah. So I definitely heard that a lot of professors, they enjoy talking to prospective students, especially if they have the time, but also like what you said, like kind of looking into what their interests were in regards to like research topics is
yeah,
probably beneficial because if their interests don't really align with yours on what you're researching, they might not be able to like help you as much as you think they would. Like make like networking with other individuals and help you get a job. So definitely doing your research on the professors and what their field of study is before you apply for their program. Because I know I have a couple of friends who are getting their masters and they're like, what my professor does is completely different from what I do. So they don't really know how to help me in what I'm doing.
Yeah. Especially because you'll probably will have to write a thesis or some type of project and you'll need them to advise you.
Exactly. So, where do you see yourself working in the literary world from pursuing a career in anthropology and your creative writing?
I'm not entirely sure. I know that I really like to write, and the program offers translation as well. And I wasn't accepted to on the translation track. I was accepted like in a fiction concentration. However, I can do translation, and I really enjoy that. I have done some, and I do publishing work at magazines, and I enjoy it. I do really like to teach though, and I do really like working with people. I think, if you do anthropology, it's because you like people. So as long as I'm working with people, I think I'll be happy.
Do you think you'll ever pursue a PhD so that you can get into academia to teach?
I don't think so. I don't think that's for me.
I mean, teaching is definitely not for everyone. Like I've thought about it a couple times, but then I'm like, do I really want to go to school for that long just to remain in school teaching other people? I'm like,
Yeah.
probably not.
No, a PhD is so much work. And like you said, it's just also, and I know that I shouldn't feel this way, but after a certain point, it's like I really like to choose what I want to read. And when you're in school, you're being told what to read. After a certain point, I think, because I love to read, but I just think, you know what? This is taking away from my time of me reading what I want to read. So that's an ungrateful perspective, but
No, but it's totally valid. Like, I also love to read, but when I'm in school and I'm having to read all these different textbooks and pages for my classes, I'm like, I don't want to read anymore. I don't have time to fun read because I got to read
yeah.
all of these classes notes or whatever. So I just don't read anymore. So hopefully when I get out of class again, then I can start reading for fun. But it's just at this point, every time I'm reading for fun, I'm like, you could be reading your textbook and getting homework done.
Yeah, yes, exactly. It's always like a conflict.
Exactly. Yeah. Have you ever considered maybe teaching like high school or elementary school or anything like that? Because I have a friend who got her degrees in, I know creative writing was one of them. I think the other one was biological anthropology. But she is an English teacher at her local high school and she teaches English lit. So have you ever considered teaching in the lower levels of school?
Oh, yes, I have. And before I was in grad school, I worked at elementary schools. I think that I also work as a TESOL English as a second or foreign language teacher, and I enjoy that a lot. I do think with someone with teaching is that it can take up a lot of time outside of the classroom as well. And the thing about writing is it also takes up a lot of time, and you need to give yourself a lot of time to do it. And so it can be like conflicting interests, but I do really genuinely like working with people. I find it more interesting to be talking to someone than to be working by myself on the computer.
So you had mentioned that you were on the creative writing track and not the translation track. I'm assuming when you say translation, that's kind of like interpreting words, or is it like actual translation from one language to another?
Exactly. It's literary translation. So I work from Spanish to English right now, and I'm translating some short stories. It's really enjoyable. It's so fun. Anyone out there who hasn't thought about translation, give it a try. It's real. It's like a puzzle.
Have you had any like so Cameron had mentioned that you guys had gone on a trip, I believe, to Argentina. What was that whole experience like? Because from what she had mentioned, it was more of like a work conference trip rather than like a personal trip.
Okay. So I think we went to a conference in Portland. and we presented there together. And then I studied in Argentina. I was lucky again, my scholarship covered like this semester abroad program. So I did an exchange in Argentina. And then after I graduated college, I went back to Argentina and I worked at an English institute there with first graders. And it was a really good experience for me for obvious reasons. But Argentina and Buenos Aires, which is where I lived, has a lot of literature and obviously it has a lot of literature, but it has a lot of bookstores and a lot of libraries and a huge culture around the literature and around promoting the literature. So I would go to this library that was a couple blocks from my house, and I would go there and write. And then they have book fairs, and I participated in some workshops. So for me, for writing, it was a really good experience because I had time to do it, and there was a lot of opportunity.
Okay. Was it kind of like a study abroad program?
When I was in college, it was a study abroad program, but then afterward, when we lived there was just life.
Yeah, it's just went over there, just worked abroad. How long were you in Argentina for?
It was about 2 years when I lived.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, with obtaining an anthropology degree, do you feel like it's kind of broadened your perspective and your viewpoints of the world?
Mm. Um, I was thinking about this question. I'm not entirely sure. I think definitely and hopefully, like, this is what happens in general, but there are so many things we're not taught in high school that you learn later, whether it's in college or just in general. And so in that way, yes, I got to study a lot of things that I didn't study in high school. And what was really special, especially to me, was that I got to take a lot of classes that were more or less about not about Arizona, but were about the region. And so I really felt like I was getting like closer to my home in a way. I guess that's not broadening your perspective, but I do think that just anthropology teaches you to it's like a very self-critical discipline as well, which I think it has that over creative writing, whereas, in literature, you have the canon of the writers that everyone reads and, the books that you read, and it's not so people don't take it so critically or think like, "Oh, maybe, we should discuss like, read this, but also discuss, like, the problems with it or the problems with this writer." Whereas I think anthropology does a lot better discussing the problems with anthropologists and the problems with theories and movements. So I think that like critical look has really influenced the way that I look at the world and influenced the way I look at writing and my writing too. For the better, hopefully.
I mean, I think you did a study abroad program while you were in college, and then after college, you decided to go live in another country for 2 years. And I feel like if you're someone who is closed-minded and not open to other countries or cultures or anything like that, you would have a very hard time moving out of where you currently live to go live in another country where they might not speak the language that you speak or have the same values or beliefs or cultures that you do. So, I think you've probably broadened your perspective more when you're living in Argentina,
Oh, yeah.
definitely, and probably going to college.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a good yes, that's very true.
Now, being a graduate teaching assistant, do you ever get to teach the actual classes, or is it more of like grading papers and just like helping out the professor?
Yeah, so this will really depend on the program. I am the instructor of my 2 classes, so it is me, and I am given a syllabus by the department if I'm teaching composition 1 or 2 or English 1 or 2, which is what I generally teach. If I teach creative writing a semester, I make the syllabus myself, and then I am the teacher in the room. I am in charge of grading. I'm in charge of everything that has to do with my students. But I have some friends who are doing like playwriting, and in that case, they work with a professor generally, or some other people who are also getting the same stipend I am don't even necessarily have to teach a class, but just do some other work. So it really, really depends on the program.
Yeah. Do you have to do any research on the side at all?
For creative writing, my research is more like reading, but I do that for my classes more than anything. So I do think that I don't know how it works in other disciplines, but for writing, because so much of it is like your personal projects, like you come in and you have your project and then you make your projects, and that's the time that you spend researching, like what books would be good to read or to know about this. And then hopefully they complement with the classes you're taking, but it's not like you're taking a class that will end up being your big project when you're done. Does that make sense?
Yes, it definitely does. So, with the classes that you're teaching, do you have any like recommendations for students who are also maybe looking to get a position as a graduate teaching assistant, and kind of like what they should expect? And I know it varies depending on what university you're in and what program you're in, but for like creative writing where you are, kind of what recommendations do you have for students who are looking to maybe get into that?
Um, I would say I personally I really do enjoy it. It's not extremely intense. I think it's work that you can make manageable. One thing though that's probably the most important, of course, is the finances. Like I don't get paid that much at all. And I think people like if you're looking into this, be realistic about not just how much the stipend is worth, but also where you're living. Because where I live right now in Fayetteville, Arkansas, the cost of living is lower compared to most places in the country. But like if I were to go, like I remember when I was looking at going to the University of Arizona in Tucson, the stipend is worth the same. And I'll say, I think I get right now, I get about like it's like 17,000 for 9 months. And it was the same amount of money, but Tucson's much more expensive. So like enter that knowing like the financial like consequences or responsibilities, how much you're gonna get.
Yeah, so definitely doing your research on, like, whether or not your university allows you to work elsewhere, what their pay is like, what the
Definitely.
locality of expenses is like,
Yeah.
to make sure that you're not living in, like, San Francisco or LA and you're getting paid, like, $15,000 and you're like, "Yeah, I could totally live on that."
No. And you have to be real.
Yeah, and it's so funny because that seems to be the theme across most of the episodes is, like, it doesn't matter what you're getting into, whether you're going into college or you're going into a master's or a PhD program or getting into work, doing your research is super important, and that seems to be, like, a key concept through all of them, is because you wanna make sure that you are the most prepared for any situation that you're getting into so that you don't get into it and you're like, "Oh, crap. I didn't think this all the
Yeah.
way through."
Yeah, exactly. Mhm.
Yeah. Um, well, before we get to our final 4 questions, is there anything we haven't discussed yet today that you would like to still talk about?
I don't think so.
Okay. And that is an okay answer as well. Um, so what would be your best piece of advice that you would offer to someone who's interested in studying, either anthropology or, creative writing or even just another language?
Oh, I think that if you're interested in studying like anthropology or creative writing, and you're in school, see if you can take a class, like an elective class in one of those areas, but take one that like the topic sounds fun too, you know? Like if you're in and see if you like it. And then if you're not in school, especially for creative writing, because I feel like this you can do this on your own. See if there's any literary groups or like go to some poetry readings and see if you meet anyone, or if you like it.
Yeah.
For
You definitely
another
don't wanna get too far into your major and then be like, "Wow, I actually hate what I'm doing," and then have to change.
Yeah. No.
Next question would be, are there any changes that you wish to see within, the scope of creative writing?
Um, I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that. I do feel like what I was talking about earlier, how anthropology is much better at being self-critical and about like really talking about the negative parts of its past and then negative aspects to anthropologists and movements. I think creative writing could do a lot better with that. I think that people like right now in this moment, writers tend to be a lot more aware and more critical of what's being published now. But the canon as a whole, I don't really see like we're teaching it differently. And I think that we could definitely teach writing and literature in a lot more like critical way without devaluing it and making it like being more honest in the conversation of like, why are we reading this book? Why are we reading this author when they're also doing, or they also had like, I don't know, problematic ties, or they're writing this in a way that's not respectful to certain groups of people, whatever it may be. I think writing could do better.
What do you just like absolutely love about anthropology and creative writing?
I think that like I'm a curious person and I have a lot of questions and I think that can be imaginative and I think anthropology and creative writing both like encourage you to ask questions and then kind of find the answers to those questions, which I really enjoy. And then with anthropology, I do really find culture and the way like our society works and other societies work just so fascinating. And I love that you can like I like that anthropology takes these things that I think most people take for granted, takes it very seriously.
If someone that's interested in learning more about creative writing, do you have any like resource recommendations they can look into?
Oh, yes, I do. If you go online and you just Google like John Fox 50 best literary magazines or 100 best, and it's not a super up-to-date list, but it has all these literary magazines, and I suggest just clicking through them and looking at them because they all have their different aesthetic and their different stories that they publish, but reading other people's work is always the best way to make your work better and to learn what else is out there.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on and taking the time and talking to me about creative writing and anthropology. I had a blast.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I really am like very humbled that I would even be asked to do this.
Yeah, I feel like, getting to interview individuals who, might not be so well known in whatever community they're working in provides you with a different perspective than someone who's like been working in the industry for a long time and everybody knows them. But somebody who's just starting out in their industry, it kind of gives you a perspective of like, what is it like starting out? Like, instead of like, oh, like I've been in this industry for 30 years and this is what my X, Y, and Z's are for this industry. Whereas for someone like you're like, oh, I'm just like starting out and I'm just getting a feel for it and deciding what I want to do. I think that resonates a lot more with listeners who are also in the same position of like, I'm currently getting a degree. I don't know 100% what I want to do, but hopefully this will lead me in the direction of the job that I want to have.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like when you're starting out too, you're so hard on yourself, like for better in good ways because it pushes you to work harder, but in bad ways in that it's not helpful either to be extremely self-critical and put yourself down for because you are just starting out. So I think feeling wishy-washy is like normal.
It's definitely part of growing up and becoming an adult.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of AnthroPuzzled. This show is produced by me and is distributed in collaboration with the American Anthropological Association. A special thanks to Cheyenne Brewer for editing the website, Leah Akers for the incredible logo design, and to AnthroPuzzled's intern Fiona for the episode descriptions. The music is courtesy of Chad Crouch, aka Poddington Bear of Sound and Picture. If you have any questions, you can reach me at abby.letsinger@anthropuzzled.com or as AnthroPuzzled on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Until next time.